Welcome to The Decision from Nashville EO, where you will hear the rest of the story after tough decisions were made by entrepreneurs who faced adversity and lived to tell about it.
Congratulations, you have found The Decision by EO Nashville. This is a podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. We are talking to people who make a lot of decisions, entrepreneurs. And we go through the process of how that works, especially in Forum, which is part of EO Nashville. We'll get into that a little bit later. With me, as always, Mr. Robert Hartline.
Thank you once again, Eric.
Always a pleasure. And with us today is my dear friend, Mr. Nathan Brandon. Can't help but crack a smile when I look at you.
Glad to be here.
You're here for because you've had an event recently.
I have 2 weeks ago. What time is it? About 4 o'clock?
Yeah, it was about this time.
About this time 2 weeks ago, I closed on the sale of my business after about 5 months of work. So yeah, still not used to it yet. Still not used to saying that.
Yeah, and I remember I texted you the day after. You stopped by my house after the closing. Yep. I was in quite the twist. I was not having quite the happy day that he had. I'm like, how you feel now? So how do you feel now?
I don't think it's hit yet.
Yeah.
I think it still feels the same so far.
Money hit the bank, though.
The money hit the bank. Okay. Finally, that was a bit of a panic that Friday afternoon. We thought they screwed up the routing number. But the money hit the bank. That was some panic. There was a definite moment.
He got on the phone really quickly. I got to take this call.
And so we got all that cleared up. It hit the bank, and we're good. But yeah, no, it hasn't really, I don't think, set in yet.
What were you expecting to feel?
I don't know. My sale of my first business, which Eric was with me for that as well, was more of a divorce. And so when that business transaction was done, there was relief because that went on for 6 months, probably at least 8 months.
Felt longer than that.
Yeah. There's too much bourbon consumed during that time period. And so the first business, when that was done, I actually didn't work in that business for about the last 4 months. And so me and Eric and even Samira, spent a lot of time brainstorming and coming up with the next business. So I was super busy during that time frame, even though I wasn't working and making money. We were planning. So as soon as that deal was done, went all in on the next one, which was the one I just sold. And so I was able to learn for 14 years my other business. So when I started this one, I knew exactly what I wanted to do and not do and how I was going to get there. And so, as soon as it was done the first time, back in 2014, I just went right to work. This time, I still keep going to work because now I have to for the next 6 months to get through the transition period. But so far, it hadn't really felt that different.
Well, what was the first business?
So it was similar. So we did lawn and landscape maintenance, design, build, irrigation maintenance, hardscapes. We did turf fertilization, weed control, which is my current business that I just exited. And we also did Christmas lights. So when I started this business, I started just doing the lawn care portion. And the reason for that is I was able to minimize the customization. My previous business, we were servicing 1,000 properties. We had to visit every customer. We had to look at every landscape. Everything was customized to that particular property and customer. With lawn care, a yard is a yard is a yard. It's all based on square footage. So most of our estimates now are all done via satellite imagery, tax data, things along those lines. We don't lay eyes on most of our properties until we go there to treat them for the first time.
Would you say that while you were designing this next business, were you just trying to make it more simple?
I was trying to make it more simple, but I was trying to make something that I could grow and scale beyond just me. My other business, I and my business partner were the faces of the company. This business, I didn't want to be the face. I didn't want to be the person that was known for everything. And so you can still find me on my website, but you got to do some digging.
Did you have a partner in the second business?
No, just
the
me.
first one you did?
The first one I did, and I learned my lesson.
You answered that really quickly.
Yeah. I wouldn't say I would never have a partner again.
Yeah.
I would never be a minority partner in a business that I actively work in daily.
Oh, that was probably a big.
I would never do that. I wouldn't. The only reason I would take a partner at this point is financial, access to relationships, or access to technology that I don't have. And beyond that, I'm not just going to take a partner just to have a partner. And my other business, I went into business with him when I was 21, and I saw the opportunity to make money.
How long was that business?
We had 14 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we had it for 14 years, and that was probably about 13 years too long.
Were you the one driving the sale of the business?
In my previous business?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of came to the conclusion. So actually I had form on a Tuesday and came home on Wednesday. My wife made dinner, just the two of us. Our kids weren't home. And she looks at me and says, "It's time." And because I had not been happy in a while and didn't really know, it was kind of I'm not going to say afraid to leave, but that's all I had ever done. And so, but when she looked at me and said, "It's time," it was kind of like it was permission to go. And so I sent a group text to my previous forum and said, "Hey guys, I've got a major life decision and I've already made the decision, but I don't know what to do next. I need help." And so I sent the group text, and 24 hours later, we were meeting again, and we had just met on Tuesday. There was, I think, one or two that couldn't be there, but they called in. And so we literally went and met at somebody else's office and created a war plan and went down that rabbit hole of, what do I need? Here's operating documents. Here's buy-sell documents. Here's all the things. Here's the bankers. Here's the accountants. And going through the process and figuring out how to tell my business partner and what to say, how to say it.
Was it one of those, enough is enough, this is it?
Yeah, it was enough was enough. I was minority partner. He was 10 years older than me. I realized that over time that I was at the point in my life, because it was in my early 30s, that I was ready to start making money. As much stuff as we had 16 trucks on the road. We had 30 plus employees. We had a lot of stuff. And what I was beginning to realize was that for him, stuff equaled success. For me, I didn't care. I was ready to make money. And I went to him at several points in time and said, "Hey, we can get rid of these trucks. We can get rid of these employees, and we can make the same money. Like go from 30 employees to 10 and make the same exact money." And he goes, "Well, why would you want to do that?" And that's just when it hit me that for him, the amount of stuff that we had was what mattered to him more than how much money we were making. And it's not all about money. But at the end of the day, when you're busting your hump and you're working 50, 60 hours a week and you're bringing home $60,000, $70,000 a year, you're like, I think I can do better than this.
Yeah. Did you have that realization because of EO? Because you've been in EO for a long time. Were you learning that as you went along? So
when I got into EO, I didn't know shit about business.
Yeah, same here.
Other than how to make money. I could make money, but I didn't know anything about business. And so what I learned is I continued to grow not only as a person through EO. Obviously, I was young when I got in. I think I was 25 or 26. Not only did I continue to grow as a person, I grew a tremendous amount as a business owner and understanding business, and had great people in my forum that I was able to learn from too. And he wasn't growing and developing as a business owner. So he was kind of staying here, and I just kept growing. And that's when I kind of realized that this isn't going to change. And
do you think if he had been in EO as well, that maybe you guys could have grown together?
Possibly. I don't think so.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that, I tried to get him to join, and he just saw it as a big networking thing, like B&I to get business. And he always hated when I came back from retreats or conferences because I would have 9,000 ideas.
Yeah.
And would talk about them, and his eyes would just roll back in his head. And so, no, I don't think he really wanted to.
Yeah.
And so that was a challenge, ironically. So since my current building is literally 2 doors down and across the alley from my old business,
And it's still there.
Still there.
Still owner? Same owner?
No, that's the funny part. So he just sold his business to my operations manager that I hired, who was one of my best man at my wedding.
Oh, wow.
He was stayed on this entire time since I left, and he just bought it from him back in December.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I sold my business on my former business partner's birthday.
Wow.
Which was just kind of funny. It just was kind of the realization of like, I did this in 9 years and not 20 something years and sold it for a hell of a lot more than you did.
Wow.
And so it was just kind of it was just kind of a nice moment of realizing.
So what sparked the decision to sell this second business?
I had not decided. So when I started the business, I built it with the intent. When I said I didn't want to be the face of the business, I wanted to sell the business in 10 years. That was my initial plan when I started the business. And so I was growing it that direction. My initial plan was to get to 10 million in revenue in 10 years. After talking to some mentors in EO, actually out of Philadelphia, who did the same thing, he said, hey, I don't really recommend doing that because we had money going out the back door as fast as it was coming in the front door. So I scaled back and said, I'm going to do 5 million in 10. And with still the intentions of exiting because I knew what the multiples I would get at that point. And so what changed my plan of not selling at that point was I read a book called Profit First. Actually we were at Nerve somewhere down in Florida. And me and my wife were sitting there having lunch during a break, and there was 2 other EO members sitting at a table, and I heard them talking about the book. And I looked at my wife and said, excuse me, I got to get up and go talk to these guys. I'm reading this right now. And so that changed my outlook in the way I managed money and the way I managed cash, focusing more on making the money while I own the business instead of just trying to make the money on the exit. And so that's what I focused on the last 3 or 4 years and have been really happy. I've been working in the office 15 hours a week, and I'm there 3 days and have been really happy. And so, but I've been getting a lot of offers for the last 18 months. And so while they were good offers, they weren't enough to make me, I'm 44, so they weren't really enough to make me go, that's something I want to do right now. But over the last, I don't know, probably in the last 6 months, 7 months is when the offers started getting substantially bigger. And that's when I started paying more attention. And actually on my retreat this past January is when I entered into the LOI with the company that ended up doing the acquisition. So I wasn't actively looking to do the deal. It was one that when they put the numbers in front of my face, I viewed it as an overvalued asset.
So for those who have not heard of Profit First, you want to navigate what that is for those listening?
Yeah. So it's a book by Mike Michalowicz. The easiest way I can explain it is a cash management philosophy and idea that he created out of being an entrepreneur that went flat broke after selling several businesses. And his story of the system that he came up to deal with, not doing it again, talks about, having to tell his wife and his daughter that they were on the verge of losing their house and their car, and his daughter going and getting their piggy bank and going, here, Daddy, this will help. And so it was just kind of one that just kind of hit me. And it's kind of like a Dave Ramsey type system of cash management. It uses bank accounts instead of envelopes. And while neither one of them really agree with debt, I do, and it's a tool to use. But it drastically changed the way that I manage my business.
Do you actually do that? Do you have separate accounts
I do.
You literally pay yourself
every week?
Wow.
Well, now I do once a month, but I literally wrote myself a check consistently, week in and week out, now month in and month out.
It forces you to create profit.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a separate tax account. I have a separate owner's comp account, which I pay myself out of. I don't pay house bills out of that account. I write myself a check. We have a separate profit account. And then I also created an investment account. So, as well as our operating account for the business.
That transpired going to a Nerve event.
Yeah. Another EO member had recommended the book. And so I picked it up and said, I'll read it on the airplane. Well, we get down there a day early to enjoy the beach, and it does nothing but rain all day. So I sit in the hotel room and read the book. And so, and then when we run across the other 2 EO members that were using that, it was just kind of cool. The guy starts talking about all the vacations he's been taking that he never took before because he didn't have the time and he didn't have the money. And so the idea behind it is that once a quarter you take half of your profit and reward yourself and actually do something for you from the profits of the business. Which I know for a long time, I always viewed business that I'm going to pump everything I make back into the business because I'm going to make my money when I sell it. I don't care about making my money when I'm there. I need to make enough to live, but I'm really going to make it when I sell. And it just totally changed my idea and my philosophy behind that.
So I want to go back to the time when you were selling the first business, you were a minority owner, and then suddenly you're thinking, man, I get to make the decisions now. How much of your, I don't know, how much was your energy around proving yourself?
A lot, because I felt like I'd been in kind of his shadow. Being minority owner, was 10 years younger than him. And it was kind of his way or the highway. And, I went in to talk to my accountant. We shared the same accountant at the time. And he goes, he's never treated you like a business partner. And so, a lot of it was to give him a big double barrel FU. And it was really kind of funny when I bought the building 2 doors down and moved my office up to Nashville right next to him. I remember he was being such a tool bag when it came to the, that's the nicest way I can say it. I mean, I'm not wrong.
You're not.
Not wrong. He was being such a tool bag with the non-solicitation and things that he'd agreed to after the sale. I actually called my attorney before I bought the building to make sure that I wouldn't be in violation of anything because he was being so erratic. And so, there was a whole lot of, I'm going to do this and I'm going to prove you wrong. And I was able to.
So how has Nathan, now that you've sold your second, how is Nathan going about what's the next version of Nathan look like?
I hadn't figured that out yet. The non-compete agreement that I have with the company that bought me is pretty substantial. It's 5 years, and it even covered consulting, and it even covered 2 industries that I'm not even in. One of which was going to be what I went into. It was the next logical play that I could take everything I've learned from this business and apply it directly to that one.
Wow.
And I can't do it for 5 years. And so I don't know. Somebody asked me that and I was like, I'm not real sure what that looks like yet, but I promise you it's not going to be an employee.
I don't know if I could be that either.
Until now, I have never had a W-2 job.
Ever in your whole life?
Other than working for family friends, which I don't in high school. I don't really consider that a job when they say come to work when you want. And if you don't want to, don't show up. That's not really a job. And so, this is the first time I actually have gotten a paycheck with taxes taken out of it from somebody other than myself.
Oh, because you're having to work there.
Yeah. And so I get an actual W-2 check. And I was like, that's kind of weird. I never got a guaranteed paycheck.
Well, here's a question. So when you think about in the last 9 years of the business you just sold, was there a time that you had a tough decision to make that you came to your forum with?
It was probably the biggest was when I was getting all of and it wasn't necessarily a decision. It was just kind of the dilemma of selling the business. Not the actual deal that I took, but because I was getting so many offers, there was a stretch. It felt like I was getting one a month.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of it was the same private equity groups or variations of those groups coming back. And lots of roll up in the private equity. So it's like one's talking to me and then 3 months later, they introduce me to their new private equity partners who've brought additional capital in. So there were several of those. And it was just the struggle of, when do you look at it? When do you not look at it? And the initial deals, it's fun to talk about. It's flattering when you have that many people knocking, wanting to do it. And so I presented it for them, and it wasn't a typical presentation. It was a walk in my shoes. And there was some great feedback and things. And there was one in particular where the guy just kind of sit back and he goes, I'm just envisioning taking this deal and I'm sitting on the beach here doing so and so and enjoying the time with my wife and my kids and taking the time because I've worked and been so driven and so goal oriented for the last 10 years. I'm just going to take this time and enjoy it for me. I'm going to sit back and take a time off, gather myself, gather my thoughts, create the next plan and the next goals. I'm going to sell the business and I'm going to get it done. And it was just really interesting. He put a lot of thought into it and a lot of time. And it was very introspective. And so that was probably one of the biggest feedbacks. Now, I ended up not taking the deal that I was talking about at the time because it just ended up not being the right deal. But his comments, his feedback stuck with me the whole time. But I will say, too, that it was one of the coolest things to be able to sit there on my forum retreat in Las Vegas when I get the email of the final offer and the terms are right. That was pretty cool.
Now, when you're thinking about the initial idea of selling, were you thinking that you had the idea of a non-compete keeping you from an industry that maybe you have a lot of experience in, of course, but looking back on it, would you make any different decision? Because somewhat, I could see how that would scare me away from doing a deal, knowing that I had to exit the industry too.
Yeah, and so it's forcing me not only out of what I know how to do, which I expected. I expected to not be able to do what I do currently. I didn't expect to be pushed out of 2 other industries. They're in the green industry, but not specifically what I do. And really one of them is totally unrelated. So yeah, there was some trepidation behind that and some reservations with it. But, at the end of the day, when I sat back and looked at it, it was one of those ones, it was a hard no. There was no negotiating that out of the deal.
Oh,
I tried.
Oh, wow.
There was, because the non-compete is inside the U.S.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. There's not a range. It's inside the U.S. for 5 years. And so,
so Mexico is your next step?
Yeah. Or okay. Canada.
Yeah. Okay.
I did ask if they were including Alaska and Hawaii. They didn't find that funny.
Wow.
I thought it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But they didn't. And so, there was it was a little concerning, but when I sat back and looked at the deal, based on how long I've been in the industry, the valuation that they were putting on the business, I didn't think was realistic.
Mm. And so since the close, we got what?
2 weeks, literally 2 weeks.
Now that you have this, it is funny when you have these boundaries that develop. You could start a whole new business, but now you have this boundary set up where, well, you can't do this, you can't do that. So has it reshaped maybe an industry you've never thought of before?
Yeah, actually, yes. We started talking about plumbing companies and HVAC companies, just because of they're still service-based, which is what I'm familiar with, what I know. That level of labor is what I know and understand. And they're 2 services that people always have to have.
Yeah.
No AI.
No AI. That's right.
It's not going to get outsourced to another country.
Yeah. The biggest challenge, specifically with HVAC, is the amount of labor leaving the market, skilled people.
And how do you find people?
I have absolutely no idea. I hadn't gone that far yet.
But here's the other question. Why do you want to?
I enjoy business.
You like the business part of it?
I do. And that's what I've learned. I've been so when I was selling the first business, I got involved with Catalyst, and was able to enroll. I was in class. I went through class 3 because at the time, if you went through the class, they asked you to stay on, be facilitator after class discussions because they did breakouts every class. You stayed on, facilitated those, and then moderated a forum. So instead of paying for the class, that's what I did, and really fell in love with doing that. And I still do that to this day. I still facilitate forums on a regular basis, do mentorship with several, and spend a lot of time. And I found a real enjoyment and passion behind that. And so, and enjoy the business. I enjoy helping things. Part of what I've realized in this business was I enjoy the growing parts and getting it to a point where it can do its own thing. But when it comes to just being there and doing the same stuff over and over and over, that's not who I am. You know, I was telling you before I got here, I had to do new corporate safety Zoom call. I would rather gouge out my eyes.
Did you do your TPS report?
Oh my God. I threw the red stapler. It was, that's not who I am, and it's not who I want to be.
Yeah.
And so I can do anything for 6 months, but it's.
What's the longest time you haven't worked?
When I exited the first business, but I can't say that wasn't work. I worked the entire time I was exiting that business.
Yeah.
Prepping.
Too anxious to even. Yeah. It was a mess.
I mean, there was a lot of time in the basement, a lot of bourbon.
Yeah.
But we are. Yeah. I don't know if you're like me, but are we addicted to being busy? Is that what is the desire to always be doing? I'm always envious of those that are like, oh, I'm going to, play golf. And they do. And I'm like, how do you even do something like that?
Well, but that's still being busy.
Yeah. Maybe.
I just get too mad on the golf course.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do I think there's some addiction to it? I do.
Yeah.
One of the things, and I don't remember where I heard it, it was at an EO event, that most entrepreneurs are addicts.
Oh, of course we are.
Mm-hmm.
80, 90% of us are addicts.
Yeah.
Whether it's, sex, drugs, alcohol, rock and roll, whatever it is. And it's a double-edged sword. It's what makes us really good at what we do, but it's also the downfall of a lot of us.
Well, how have you navigated that?
Not well at sometimes.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
Very not well.
Yeah.
So when I was selling the first business, I didn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. Couldn't turn my brain off. And so there was 2 ways I did it. One was with a bottle, and the other was literally I would turn on TV and watch until I fell asleep. And that would typically be 2 or 3 in the morning. I'd wake up at 5 and do it all over again. And learned a little since then.
Yeah.
And now I hit the gym more than I did. I try to be in the gym 3 or 4 days a week. I'm not going to say that I don't drink. I do. I don't drink like I did.
Yeah.
And 1 or 2 drinks a week most of the time, and that's it. And so that was a really not good spot at all. I don't recommend it.
Yeah.
And
but do you see that show up in your catalyst experience with a new entrepreneur who's new in the business? I mean, do you see those addictions appear?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you educate them on that?
I tell them about my experience.
Yeah.
What I did. I found out later after the sale that my wife thought I was going to have a heart attack just because I was so stressed and not sleeping and drinking way too much. And so I've told this from my catalyst people the entire time. If you have a question, just ask. So, because odds are I'll answer it.
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to tell you no.
I couldn't imagine being an entrepreneur without my wife. She sees so much how I am and able to mirror it back to me to help me have that awareness, and also reminder. When your business, I was in retail, so this was the business, right? And I would have this, same low points every year. Sales are dipping. January 15th is usually when it was hit. It's like, where am I going to make payroll? You said that last year. You made payroll. Okay, thanks.
And the last 9 years too.
Yeah.
I was really fortunate. That's probably one of the reasons that I fell in love with my wife, is that both of her parents have up until the last few years have been entrepreneurs and been their own business owners. Both of her brothers own their own business. And so she knew what it was. She understood what that life was. Maybe not to the degree that she signed up to with me, but she at least got it. And
is she in spousal form?
She up until recently, her form decided to go their separate ways here recently. But yes, up until recently, she has been.
Yeah. I think the spousal aspect, if you've never heard of spousal forum, if you're just listening in, it is a very similar forum experience that spouses of EO members get in a forum. And I think what my wife would say she gets the most out of is other people that have crazy entrepreneurial husbands and a place to share similar stories, because we are probably just different. We don't clock out. We are always in the middle of some kind of crisis and or pivot to keep things afloat.
Yeah, many times I've had to say, I have to take care of this. It's gotten a lot less, but there are times where you just go, I don't have a choice right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's, there's many times where you wake up in the middle of the night and the idea hits, or you have the idea before you go to bed and you're, at least for me, my mind's sitting there running 9,000 miles an hour. And then the light bulb just goes off and you get up and you just go to work. At least I do. Because if I don't get it out just on a piece of paper or on the computer, then I won't sleep the rest of the night. And so and it doesn't matter. It can be good things. It can be bad things. It can be a project that I'm working on that I'm excited about. That's a hobby project that when the mind's just going, I don't sleep.
So now that you have to you have to work out an exit, you got to do that until December. Have you mapped out what does it look like to make a decision for the next business? Have you formalized how you would come up with the final thing?
I haven't. I had lunch with a guy today, and that was one of the things we were talking about. What's the strategy going forward? I was like, I'm not even sure it's hit me yet that this is actually real, because it's only 2 weeks ago. And the reason why I say that, Robert, is that originally we inked the deal February 1. We were supposed to close March 31st. We just closed July 7th. And so everything was trucking along. Due diligence was done. Financial due diligence was done. They came for a site visit. Well, the end of February, 1st of March, I had 3 employees leave. That was half of my production team.
Ooh.
So even though we were tracking production-wise, the guy walks in, and I had to tell him that we were 3 people short. He sees 3 trucks sitting in the warehouse. He wants to know why. And so I had to tell him what was going on, and it was no fault of my own. One guy never came back after a Christmas break. Was pretty sure he had a drug problem. Tried to get him help. He didn't want it. He never came back. Another guy got on with Metro Nashville Police Department. That was his dream job. Bless his heart. It happens. It happens. Not for me, but that's
Good
what he did.
him.
Good for him. Absolutely. And then another guy got a management opportunity with another company. And while I wanted to tell him what I was doing, because that would have been management opportunity for him within the new organization, I couldn't tell him. So he left too. And so I had to get everybody rehired. So like in the 9 years of this business, I've never had 3 people turn over in 1 year, much less 30 days.
Oh, wow.
And so my normal channels for hiring, which has always been referrals, just wouldn't work. We couldn't drive that many referrals that fast. And so we actually had to reach back out into, Facebook ads, LinkedIn, and then some of the other paid places for ads. And so we were able to get staff back up. And so, what was it? We were able to get staffed back up at least 2 out of the 3 by the end of March. So we got all the way through April. Once we finished April's books, they came in and looked at the financials. Once they looked at the financials and we were staffed back up, they said, okay, we're good. Let's go. So there was that time frame in March. I got pretty mad. I was pretty hot because the business was still tracking financially. We were on time schedule wise, but because of their experience, they'd have several other locations in Tennessee that had experience with staffing and state regulations. for the certifications in our industry and had a really hard time getting employees for them. And so they were like, we're going to pump the brakes. So I kind of looked at it as time was going to kill the deal and that the deal wasn't going to happen. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to keep running it and doing it and pretend they're not even there. And so when they reached back out at the end of April, I was talking to them and I was like, oh, I thought y'all were done. They're like, oh, no. And so it was really interesting going through that process. And it was a pretty big emotional roller coaster going through that, thinking it was going to be done. And so when I say I'm not really sure what I'm going to do, after that part of the deal happened, kind of checked out and said, if this happens, cool. If it doesn't, I'm not counting anything until I actually have money. Now I actually have the money in the bank account and I'm still trying to figure out what to do.
Well, if you look back, were you excited about the money of the sale or doing something new? If you had to pick one, which one would you be more excited about?
Probably doing something new.
Yeah.
I've been in this industry, in this world for my entire professional career. So for almost 25 years, it's what I've done. And so, something new. I mean, having the money is nice. Having that freedom and it's not retirement money. If I wanted to, go buy an Airstream and live in a camper, it would be retirement money. But it's enough money that I don't have to worry about making a house payment. Don't have to worry about paying for the kids' college. And it's enough money for me to be comfortable to start another business.
Yeah.
When I started this business, I took every penny from the sale of the first one and started this one. And so it was nowhere near the size of the transaction. And somebody goes, well, what if it doesn't work? And I was like, that's not an option.
Yeah.
When I told him I was leaving, my son was 2 and my daughter was 6 months old. My wife worked for the YMCA at the time. And somebody's like, well, what if it doesn't work? And I was like, that never crossed my mind that it wasn't going to work because I knew exactly what it cost to get a customer. I knew exactly how I was going to get the customers. I knew exactly how much I could spend to get how many customers I needed to spend. So the idea of failing in that last business, because I knew it so well, I knew the demographics, I knew the numbers, that never crossed my mind. It never even was a blip on the radar. And so, now getting ready, finding something else to do is exciting and fun. And then there's a little bit of that kind of that fear factor motivation of what do I got to do next? And the fear of failure.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not one that really hit me until we're sitting here having this conversation and it's like, that's something I'm going to have to deal with at some point.
I've been thinking a lot lately about the number of baby boomers who have a substantial business and their family does not care about taking it over and they're for sale.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an easy business. Well, for most, just to knock it out of the park and already have something that is going to work. I keep thinking about kind of wanting to do that, but I'm not. I would. Don't tell that about my wife.
Be quiet. Nathan and I have been talking about this a lot. Don't tell our secrets.
That's one of the things that I was looking at is, do I want to start another or do I want to buy something?
I know, because it's there. And there's the risk of failure. Something that's already there is a lot lower than if you're going to go start from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
100%. And, somebody asked me if I would start this business again, after my non-compete's up. And I'm not going to say no, but the amount of energy that it took last time to do it again at being 5 years older, which is still not old. I mean, that would still put me at, 49 years old. Is still a lot. And in an industry that is very demanding, time and physically. Not that I've done the physical part of this job in a long, long time, but and one of the concerns for me too is all the regulations that are coming that other states have as far as fertility applications, people's concerns with herbicides and insecticides. That's why we've taken a more organic approach to what we do currently, and it's done very well for us. But there's a lot of regulations that are in other states that are probably going to start making their way here. And I wasn't sure that was something that I wanted to deal with.
Yeah. So you have been in EO for 18 years, which is tremendous amount of experience being in a forum. How many different forums have you been
This
in?
is my second forum. So my first forum ended right as I was exiting my first business. The forum I am in currently started in December, right after the sale of the business. The business closed in November, and I agreed to when I got into this forum, I originally agreed to be a seed moderator for them. And ended up staying. And so, but I think we went through forum training in December, January.
Have you done a lot of seed moderation?
I have not. That was the only one that I've done. I've done a lot with Catalyst. At one time I was moderating, I think 3 forums.
Oh, wow.
I had my forum, my EO forum, and then I had a Catalyst forum. Then I had another group of Catalyst people that had finished the class that wanted to continue operating as a forum. So the only thing I did was show up and referee.
So what kind of advice do you have for a new EO member who just joins the chapter? What kind of experience share would you give that person for them to maximize the opportunity?
Specifically when it comes to forum, the more you give, the more you get. And so being open and as honest as you can, because the more you share, it opens up. It shows the vulnerability, but it shows other people that you're willing to be open and honest, which then other people by default are going to see that and start sharing more. My current forum that I'm in, obviously I won't go into details, but we were on our first forum retreat. We had a person that wasn't going to come because of a major life situation that was going on. And I was able to reach out to him and say, hey, I understand what's going on, but I think you really need to be here. And here's why. And that first forum retreat, they opened up and shared some of the details of what was going on. And that set the backbone. Like we'd been together a year at that point, and we hadn't had that moment. That was the moment that started the true bonds of the forum, because they opened up and revealed those details of that very thing they were going through at the time, which is a very painful, intimate thing that they were dealing with. And so, when that happened, everybody else started opening up and sharing, not necessarily similar experience, not the same experiences, but other experiences along the same lines of deep personal things that had happened or that were hurtful or that were life-changing. And so that's what I would say, is being open and honest, and you get out of it what you put into it.
And how do you get people to share that 5%? Because I've seen people struggle with being more open.
It's tough. And the times that I've seen it happen is when somebody's literally on the verge of a breakdown. Because I think a lot of us, and obviously, when I got into EO, there was no 5%. It was what's your highs and lows.
Yeah.
That's what the update was. What's your business, your personal, and your family. That was it. Highs and lows. It was really easy. And so the 5% is a different way of looking at it. I've not gone through moderator training since they've gone to the 5%. Because when I moderated this current forum for 2 years, and I haven't been moderator since. So I'm actually moderator elect now. So I get to go through forum training or moderator training again.
I tell everyone, get into that moderator training. It changed my view of forum and the way they speak about the 5%, what it really means is really impactful. I strongly suggest, if you're listening, to definitely do it'll change the way you give your 5%.
Yeah, it's helped me dig deeper and find that top and bottom 5% by thinking about the emotions that I've experienced in the last month. So when have I been the angriest or saddest or most anxious? And then I go, oh, okay, now I have something to talk about in forum. And I can then, be vulnerable as you described, and everybody else follows suit. And I remember that happening in my forum 15 years ago. somebody revealed something. I went, oh, wow, that sucks. And now it's real.
I mean, but it's one person being willing to take that leap to rip the Band-Aid off to get it going and get it started.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Nathan, thank you for joining us here on The Decision, and congratulations.
Thank you. I
on
appreciate
the opportunity of the next phase for Nathan.
Thank you very much. Been a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you for listening. If you are an entrepreneur here in Nashville, Tennessee, and you are hearing some things that intrigue you, you can come on and visit us at eonashville.com. Reach out and say, hey, I'm curious about your little group of 345 entrepreneurs here in Nashville that get together once a month and have a great time along the journey of entrepreneurship. Thanks for watching and have a fantastic rest of your week.
Thanks for listening to the Decision Podcast by Nashville EO. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.